better? He promised me he was going to load that in. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, my name is William Mitchell, and I'm also obviously a candidate for your sheriff's office this year's election. I want to thank each of you for coming out here. My interest in politics has actually gotten a little bit beyond just the sheriff's office as I started this campaign. And just your mere presence here is an indication of what is needed. We need to make informed decisions when we cast these votes. Okay? So I applaud you for taking the time out of your schedule to come up here. I think it's a wonderful part of the process. A little bit about myself. I was not born in Franklin County. I was born in Zebulon, North Carolina in 1971 and was transplanted to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where I stayed until the age of 18. And I moved back to my birth state. Went to Campbell University, studying to be a pharmacist of all things. It did not take me long to realize that was not my dream, that was maybe my mom's. So I left there, went to WIC Tech for 2 years. I studied criminal justice, eventually got my BLET certification. Y'all trying to say that. It was hired on the Youngstown Police Department in 1992 by Larry Pritchett. And I am indebted to him for giving me that opportunity. 1994, Sheriff Redmond was kind enough to swear me in as a uniform deputy. I stayed uniform patrol deputy until 1997, at which time I was promoted to the rank of criminal investigator. Remained as an investigator until 99, at which point I was placed in the drug unit. Mr. Bowers and I worked together for several years. Because I demonstrated an aptitude for that type of work, I remained there until October the 7th, 2013. To stay in the drug unit for that amount of time is unheard of anywhere in the state of the nation. Sheriff Jones came in, I discussed it, he promoted me to his captain over the Uniform Patrol Division. Most recently, the title was captain over the Administrative Division. So basically in my career, I've been a uniformed deputy, I've served civil process, I've been a criminal investigator, I'm a search warrant expert, and our team of people that we intend to bring with us will bring a unique approach to law enforcement in Franklin County, if not the state, which has not been attempted as best we can determine. And good Lord willing, tonight I'm going to give you some examples of some changes that we intend to make, and I also intend to tell you why. And I kindly appreciate your consideration, and again, I thank you for coming.
The first question tonight is, given the current discussion of school safety, how can the Sheriff's Office best protect the school children of this county given the available resources?
Good to see you again. As I understand the question, how can we best protect our school children with the resources that we currently have? It's my understanding, you folks understand, I resigned December the 31st to start this endeavor. But it's my understanding that we have a functional SRO program, which is a school resource officer in our school. We also have a functional DARE program, which was reinstituted, I guess, within the last 12 to 14 months, something in that area. But of course, as sad as it may be, the law enforcement presence in a school is a sad thing for me. Unfortunately, apparently it's become a necessity. So, of course, we will continue with our SRO program. Now, we will seek to try and get some funding through the school system to help offset that cost. But we will certainly maintain a functional school resource officer program.
All of you standing before us this evening have chosen to run for sheriff of Franklin County. This position asks that you serve the community with honor, integrity, and trust. In addition to these qualities that rely heavily on ethical behavior and actions, we'd like to know what makes you the most qualified candidate for this seat, and would your current resume and background check allow you to serve in a top-level government position?
Folks, I'm a 22-year lawman. That's my background. That is my work experience. But in those 22 years, I have touched just about every aspect of law enforcement that I can think of. Now, as far as my ethics were tested to a degree which I would have never imagined prior to January 31st, 2011. You may know the incident I'm referring to. My concerns were brought to light 14 months before any action was taken. So I think my ethics are pretty solid. As far as my qualifications outside of law enforcement, they're limited. But we have a vision, we have an idea that is unique to our campaign. Currently, your sheriff's office budget is just about $10 million annually. I don't have a skill set to manage a $10 million business. But as a conservative, I recognize at this point your sheriff's office is a business. So we intend to bring in some non-sworn personnel who have been successful in the private sector to assist me and my team in managing the fiscal end of the sheriff's department so we can finally demonstrate some conservative spending habit with no reduction in the services provided. As has been said, we're going to do more with less, and it will work. And I ask your support. Let's get this done.
Regarding the sheriff deputies, what requirements do you believe need to be in place regarding certification of those who hold this position?
As Mr. Hawley said, certification is pretty self-explanatory. That's law enforcement training. It's what is required in the state of North Carolina to be a deputy sheriff. We're going to take a little bit beyond that. I'm a stickler for training. I'm a stickler for putting qualified people in qualified positions. I do not believe in taking a man or a woman and putting them in a place where they're not qualified to do the work that's asked of them. You're intentionally setting them up for failure. It's not fair to the deputy. We get to that point. We get to that point through training. Not just mandated in-service training, which is what the state of North Carolina requires law enforcement officers to take annually. We need to allow our deputy sheriff to take some elective training. That's how Mr. Bowers and I got in the drug unit. We took elective training, we learned how to work drugs. We need to do these things. You can't simply take a deputy sheriff, promote them to the rank of criminal investigator, and expect they can do that job adequately. It goes well beyond just knocking on doors, serving papers, and answering calls before you get to the level of a promotion such as that. So we're going to bring in the opportunities for these deputies to take elective training of their choosing. Let them decide what career path they're going to take. As I told you, mine was in drug investigation. I genuinely enjoyed it. But I took all the training that was available to me. As far as I know, I'm the only graduate of 2-week DEA basic school in Elizabeth City. And you don't get to those places unless you're invited by the federal government. That's where I want to see all of our deputies get there, where they're called upon.
The Sheriff Department has to deal with budgeting, revenue, and other financial matters, including purchasing equipment. Do you feel that these things are best left up to the Sheriff alone? If not, what are your ideas on handling of these line items to keep money issues above board, clear of questionable expenditures that can reflect poorly on the Sheriff and his staff?
Ladies and gentlemen, obviously the Sheriff has to have some involvement in the budget process. But to do it solely by himself, absolutely not. Just to dictate, that doesn't work. I've told you what my feelings are as far as the budget, the fiscal end of the Sheriff's Department. I assisted in prepared budgets under Sheriff Jones. He was kind enough and had enough confidence in me to allow me to participate in that process, as I did with Sheriff Green. And in fairness to Sheriff Jones, we isolated several areas in the budget that had been overlooked and neglected under previous administration, to the event $24,000 was simply wasted on equipment that was sitting on a shelf. Those are the things that need to be corrected. But yes, the sheriff must be involved in the budget process. He has to be. Where we differ is the personnel that we're going to bring in to assist. If I could manage a $10 million business, folks, I wouldn't be standing in front of you. I'd be managing a business somewhere. Recognizing that deficiency, but I have the interest, we're bringing in non-sworn personnel, as I've said, that have proven successful in the private sector with managing businesses and finances. That is what is required. That is what we need. We need conservative spending habits coupled with professional law enforcement. I, for one, don't want to continue to pay increases in my taxes every year. Okay? But yes, the sheriff must remain involved. I'm sorry, but he must be involved in all aspects of his office. Thank you.
In your opinion, from what you know, how well equipped is the Franklin County Sheriff's Department Drug Task Force? What changes would you make and why?
Ladies and gentlemen, that is not a fair question because I trained them. Absolutely, they're adequate. They're highly trained individuals, they're highly motivated, and they're professional. I'm not going to say a cross word about it. Can we do more? Absolutely. Do we need to? Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to do that through multi-agency cooperation. I'm not saying that the Manning program, the multi-agency narcotics unit that we started was the best thing in the world, because it didn't turn out to be that way. But we still have to have interagency cooperation. Okay, we can do more working together as a team. I will use that word countless times this evening. We have to be a team. We have to mend these old wounds. We need to get back to working together as a law enforcement community. The only people that suffer, I'm a non-sworn person now, I'm a civilian. The only people that suffer in this county when law enforcement don't cooperate with one another is us. It's the citizens. Okay. But yes, I have nothing ill to say about anyone at the Sheriff's Department. But yes, your drug agents are highly trained, they're highly motivated, and they're very professional. And personally, I'm extremely proud of each other. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've already touched on that. Cooperation amongst these agencies in this county is a must. I myself am not divine. If I become your sheriff, I'm not going to be divine then. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to step on some toes. Chief Lassiter can have an amen. But let me explain the difference. When you make a mistake from time to time, it doesn't matter who is right or wrong. Sometimes we have to fall on our sword. We need to move on. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I've got a great working relationship with all the chiefs of police and their men, deputy sheriff, and I don't conceive any reason that would change. But as Mr. Hawley said, yeah, we need to sit down, we need to have some discussion, and we need to get some of these issues resolved. Just get them out there. And if me falling on my sword and saying I made a mistake, I have wronged you, I have stepped on your toes, offended your jurisdiction, if that disqualifies me to be your high sheriff, I apologize. But that's the way I was raised. As Mr. Hawley said, it's not about credit. I believe it was an 18th century Catholic priest once said, no offense to the women in the room, that men can do great things if they do not care who gets the credit. We just need to get beyond these issues. We need to reestablish the working relationship with all county agencies. We work well with Wake County. We work well with Vance and Warren County, Nash County. It's a sad state if we can't do that in our own home. So we're going to readjust. We're going to fix it. Thank you.
Well, this country was founded by folks who had the ability to stand on their own feet, solve problems, and took responsibility. Could you explain how you will apply these same traits as sheriff?
Standing on your own 2 feet, absolutely. As far as the Constitution, folks, I'm a constitutional conservative. I make no bones about that. I always have been, ever since I got old enough to understand what the Constitution was. As far as standing on my own 2 feet, as far as what is in the best interest of the citizens of this county, there's a specific date, and I want you folks to know I did not prep for this. Okay? But there's a specific date that every elected sheriff throughout the United States should be aware of. That is June 27, 1997. And I do my research because I care, because I want to know what authority is bestowed upon any elected sheriff. He needs to know. If I want to be that, I need to know. June 27, 1997, the United States Supreme Court ruled in favor of 2 sheriffs from the Midwest who sued specifically over the Brady Bill. And in that ruling, basically, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the federal government cannot compel, antagonize, or require any state or local government to enforce any federal regulatory acts. That's a fact. Robert Redmond, as the sheriff, he knew that. And I know he knew it because he had an act upon it when the DEA came into Franklin County, was playing in our sandbox, and we were not aware of it. As a law enforcement officer, I recognize fully that that's an extremely dangerous situation. When you have outside people come in your community working drug investigations without your local men's knowledge. I went to the DEA, the senior agent in charge, and explained to him, Sheriff Redmond has sent me with a message. If this occurs again, we'll do one of two things: run you out of our county, or we'll have you arrested. So I will stand behind the Constitution.
Do you feel organized quarterly town hall meetings in different locations around the county would be beneficial for the Franklin County Sheriff's Department? And would this be a good source of communications and allow citizens the chance to voice their concerns?
Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you right up front, I'm not a comedian, I'm not trying to be, but I'm fearful that someone has been leaking information from my campaign. This has specifically been discussed with amongst my team and I. We had actually considered entertaining the idea of trying to have a public meeting, public forum monthly. But thank you, I appreciate that. I think quarterly would probably work better. But yes, throughout this campaign, knocking on doors and talking to the citizens has been rather enlightening to me. Now, I am not going to say anything nasty about the Franklin County Sheriff's Department. I spent 20 years of my adult life there, okay? But the citizens have some concerns. And the only way, having worked at the Sheriff's Office for 20 years, that I became aware of some of these concerns was knocking on the door. Well, the citizens shouldn't have to have me come knocking on their door. We should all get together, everyone. If there's a concern, let's discuss it. Sheriff Jones, myself, none of these men up here can fix a problem if we do not recognize it exists. Okay? So the only way for that to happen is to get together, just like we're doing now. I guarantee you there's some folks in here that have concerns with your law enforcement community in this county. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Okay? So absolutely, we will definitely do everything we can do to organize some events where the citizens can come and tell us the good and the bad. Thank you.
How do you feel about work ethics? Is the sheriff position a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday job?
Folks, we all know being elected sheriff, or chief of police, or deputy sheriff, or police officer, not a 9 to 5 job. We're held to a higher standard, and we're expected to be there when we're called. I promised myself I'm going to remain absolutely professional here tonight, and I am. But I'm going to tell you, there's a rumor been floating around that William Mitchell couldn't be relied upon. Folks, that is a small part of what compelled me to do what I'm doing. Because it got to the point where I felt as though I was no longer an asset or needed at your sheriff's office. But for someone who reportedly doesn't believe in working after 5 o'clock, I will tell you that the county of Franklin took 240 hours of my compensatory time and basically threw it in the trash. That's what's going on, folks. All your deputies are working overtime. Okay? While we're on that compensatory time, we're going to come up with a plan. We're working on it now to get these deputies paid for the hours that they work. That's what you folks get. That's what these deputies expect. But folks, I have no problem coming out. When I told my bride, sitting right there, that folks were being told that William Mitchell wouldn't come out and work, she was livid. She cannot recall how many times her husband had to get up and leave her bed at 3 in the morning to go assist a citizen in this county. So absolutely, if you call me, if I need it, I'm going to be there. Always have been and always will be. Thank you.
Can you name 2 career positions that you previously held that you believe best qualify you for sheriff?
Well, folks, it's a little difficult for me. I've been in law enforcement all 22 years, and I was a bricklayer before that to pay for my college. But my entire adult life, since I was the age of 21, has been geared towards law enforcement. Okay? That is my skill set. As I've told you, I worked my way up through the ranks from a slick sleeve deputy all the way to the position of captain. that is where I shine. But in those 22 years, I didn't take the easy way out, folks. I did everything I could do to prepare myself for one day being in a management or leadership position in a law enforcement agency, not necessarily the sheriff's office. Okay? The elected in-service training that I took wasn't the easy one. I'm a certified instructor in the state of North Carolina. One of the most difficult courses to take and complete. But as far as those positions, I've told you I worked on your budgets. I feel in my mind I'm well versed as what's in there, what's going on. My management style is something that's been developed over the last 22 years. I don't believe in lording over anyone. And to this day, I still have law enforcement officers in this county that call me to seek my advice as a law enforcement officer. Now, in my mind, and I may be wrong, but I think that is the type of individual that the county needs as your chief peace officer. Someone that has the skill set and the knowledge to get these things done and make it work. So as far as specific positions, we can talk about the drug unit, we can talk about criminal investigations. I've served executions, civil process, process crime scene, search warrant prep expert. At one time in Franklin County, there wasn't one issue without my approval. So take those things into consideration. I appreciate it.
What prompted or motivated you to become a candidate for sheriff?
I think I can fix it. Never mind, I can't fix it. Because I'm going to tell you something that may surprise you. I never, ever endeavored to be the sheriff of Franklin County. Never. Now, as recently as 4 or 5 years ago, folks started coming to me, asking me, when are you run for sheriff? Not interested. Not my thing. I want to retire from the Franklin County Sheriff's Department after 30 years, go home and spend the rest of my days with my family. So what compelled me to do this is the question. It's very simple. There's too much at stake for someone in my mind, such as myself, not to at least make an effort. I've spent the better part of my life working with one of the best sheriff's departments in the state of North Carolina, 100 counties. It is fully my intent to be your next sheriff, and that I will be working with the best sheriff's department in the state of North Carolina. This is not about me. You may not believe that. This is about you. This is about almost 64,000 people that reside in this county. That is what compelled me to make this bid for this office. It's just that simple. That's what it is. Thank you.
If elected to the sheriff's office, what top 2 things do you feel are a priority to be dealt with, and what 2 things would you change and why?
Ladies and gentlemen, I would go ahead and tell you, I feel like probably the most pressing issue that Franklin County has is our residential break-ins and property crime. Historically, data will indicate that about 80 to 85% of our crimes, such as that, are directly related to illegal drug sales. So we need to increase our focus on that. If the data is correct, you will see your crime rate exponentially decrease as your number of drug arrests increase. Okay? On the same side, the obverse side of that same coin, I would much rather deter a crime as opposed to have to investigate it later. And how we intend to do that is through increased presence of our uniformed patrol deputies. Okay? When I resigned December 31st, it's a fact. There were 22 uniformed deputies assigned to patrol division. There's 42 that weren't. Now, we fully intend, and this may be unpopular, but I'm not going to tell you something and then do something different later. We intend to adjust those numbers. We're already paying these men and women. We're going to put a new emphasis on our uniformed patrol division since we've already got these men and women. We're going to put more men and women in uniformed patrol and increase our presence throughout all areas of Franklin County. Now, I'm just as guilty of this as anyone else, folks, but it was very humbling to me to be told by a man in Youngsville he thought he lived in Wake County because he had never seen a Franklin County deputy. Now, that's my fault. Folks have been there 20 years. That means you've never seen me. We're going to fix that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to clarify one issue. drugs create gang activity. Okay? Folks, I want to tell you I have been extremely humbled since January 1st, knocking on doors in this county. I genuinely thought, after 22 years of working the streets in our community, that I knew a lot of folks. As it turns out, there's a whole lot of folks I don't know. But knocking on doors and the response that I have received from the citizens has been very, very humbling. To the fact, I make no bones about it, I teared up talking to a few of these folks. I don't think that's a sign of weakness on my part. It's the raising I had. That's how much I care about folks, I care about my family. And as much as I care about my family, I care equally about all of yours. 22 years of my life has been spent in various ways trying to protect folks like you. Working on EMS, police, deputy sheriff, vice chair with the Franklin County United Way. I don't see, win or lose, any reason that my attitude towards my local community is going to change because it won't. Do I want your vote, your support? Absolutely. This is something that the Lord pressed in my heart for me to do. And if I got him wrong, I misunderstood him, and he has something else in mind for me. But I kindly think this is it. And I appreciate your support. I certainly do. And I appreciate y'all coming.